What's going on?
I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take this crowd from seeing to believing. Got a taste for blood and my tongue keeps bleeding. From the words I spit, so sharp, so freezing. So cold, behold, frostbite they feeling. I could tear you apart or I could go heal them. Don't believe in fate, don't believe in ceilings. I just need a taste and my mind starts feeling. I don't pace myself, I grind, no kneeling. Got lust for change, I just love the feeling. I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. Cause I'ma live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I go by at night, I be in my feelings. I'ma be fine, need time, and I'll soon be winning. I live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I go by at night, I be in my feelings. I'ma be fine, need time, and I'll soon be winning. I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If you wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon.
Did you see her in the green room, Ken? As soon as her picture came up on our intro, she said, I'm there.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Sunday night show here on Dead Air Full Spectrum, our live event. Next 2 hours approximately or so, discussion and around the topics of the paranormal with phenomenal guests. And your host here, my name is George Lopez. With me, as always, Mr. Ken DaCosta. Thank you guys for joining us. I hope you are still making it through the summer. I can't believe this yet. You can get pumpkin spice is already available in the stores. So if you want your pumpkin spice, it's already out. And Home Depot has put up their Halloween decorations. 17th of August.
Slow your roll.
They jump on it fast, man. It's just like profit, 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 profit. Do that. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Also, reminder bell for upcoming content. And the thumbs up, extremely critical. I see some new faces in there and some regular faces. I see the Shanley Hotel joining us tonight. Hello, guys.
Hello,
And
Kelly.
I can tell you right now, it's extremely important. That thumbs up makes all the difference because we just passed a milestone, didn't we, Ken?
Yeah, we hit 5,000, which in the grand scheme of things, doesn't sound like an awful lot to people out there. But I have to tell you, for the little engine that could and for the type of programming that we try to bring you, we're very appreciative, we're proud, and we can't do it without you. So we appreciate, and this is from the bottom of my heart, each and every one of you who likes our content, decides to stick around and put up with us for a couple of hours a week.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the important part. This is an exciting return for us tonight. Anytime, and Ken and I have had multiple phone discussions where it got back to Michelle because Michelle, every time we've had the interviews with her, they've been our favorites. And I think mainly because the versatility of the conversations, Ken, it's just we can go down any road and she is versed in it, knowledgeable uh, to the point in time where I'm jealous. I can't keep up with the things that she knows, but it's still an incredible time every time she joins us. And just judging from what I'm looking at in the chat, people are excited as hell as well.
Oh, yeah. They're lined up around the corner, so we're not going to hesitate any longer. But I just want to echo that the conversations that we have with her, we hold dearly because you don't know where we're going to go. And for us, that we talk about a certain subject matter, we just love to get out of our comfort zone. And, so I don't know. I make no promises tonight. We'll try to stay on track, but who knows?
What's the 5,000? What's that's a hockey rink, right?
Maybe half of one, maybe,
Half
maybe
a
a
hockey
third,
rink.
a third of a hockey rink, a
Well,
good high school football game,
there you go. Texas football game.
yeah, or Ohio.
It could be, but we are, we're gearing up. Our ultimate goal is everybody in the paranormal universe coming to join us,
That's it.
and guests like tonight are the reason why we get these new followers and new thumbs up. And Ken, let's not delay any longer. Let's get.
Oh,
I feel bad though. Every time she comes on the show, I feel like I should be putting on pants.
well, you should, but they're not required, and that goes for everyone in chat as well as our guest tonight. She is not required to wear pants either, but we'll get to that in a minute. But all seriousness, listen, tonight we're honored to be joined by one of the most respected names in the paranormal world. Michelle is an internationally known psychic, medium, author, occult researcher, and of course, you've seen her on shows like Paranormal State and Portals to Hell. But she's written over 30 books exploring everything from psychic development to the mysteries of the spirit world. And with decades of experience behind her, she's become a trusted voice for anyone seeking to understand life behind the veil. So, without further ado, and I'll let you bring her on, George, so we don't press the same button. Please welcome back Michelle Belanger.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the land of no pantsia.
Look, she's got the books, but I feel like I'm informal. I should be wearing a tux or something.
Yeah, there's an old pants dance going on tonight, folks, ladies and gentlemen.
Typical
Yeah,
every other
we're in
every
my
Sunday.
house is full of books. There's about 5,000 of them. So this
Oh my
is
God.
yeah, this is only one of the ones.
Ladies and gentlemen, she's read every one of those twice.
At this point, I have outpaced myself with my purchases because there are so many new tasty academic books on occultism and Renaissance magic that have come
Ooh.
out, and especially the academic books, the ones that are from university presses. Those are chunky.
Spoken like a true academic that you are.
Yeah.
Well, we had a little talk. Yeah, you came on a little bit before the show. We had a little bit of a talk, and there were some definitely some topics to get to, starting with Ken. That are some of them are extremely current, and some of them are historical. So I'll let you guys get to it first, and then I will jump on board with you guys back a little later on.
All right, cool. Thank you, George. So here we are with Michelle Belanger again. So, as we talked about in our swanky trailers before we came on the show tonight in our very, very expensive dressing rooms, we wanted to talk a little bit about the darker side of this. So, but first, here's a general question for you. Do you agree with this statement, Michelle, that if you are a religious person, you follow a particular path? If you are a spiritual person, you carve your own path?
Broadly, that is kind of how folks self-identify. I will say for the past 30 years, when people have described themselves as spiritual as opposed to religious, they mean they don't belong to a dogmatic system that has been defined for them by other people. They're not really big on a structured thing, or they're not going to a church or a synagogue or whatever. They're kind of finding what works for them. Uh, I think you can be religious and be independent, but usually, if somebody's like, "I'm a spiritual person, not a religious person," what they're saying is, "I don't, I don't let somebody dictate to me what the mysteries of the universe are. I
Mm,
listen and try to figure it out for myself."
Yeah. Okay. Just because we're two pals talking here, do you
Yeah.
think some people use that as a cop out
Oh
because
yeah. I
maybe
mean,
they've
yeah.
broken
The same way
away
that some
from
people would be like,
organized?
I'm agnostic,
Yeah.
which they're really just they don't want to commit to one thing or the other. And this is not to diss anybody, because trying to figure out like what does the universe mean, and what does it mean to me, and what is my place in it, like these are some of the biggest questions we can ask in our life. And they are questions that you will ask and not be able to answer completely your entire life long.
Hmm.
So this is not to throw shade on anyone who's like, I'm still not sure how I identify, or even if you've changed how you identify and believe along the way. Because I think a certain amount of science needs to be applied to belief, in the sense that you should be willing to revise your beliefs
Mm-hmm.
when new experiences come your way.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, in terms of being spiritual, and I have to cop to being a bit of an agnostic. I'm a recovering Catholic.
Same here.
And yeah, and I think that a lot of religions had it coming to them, you know, because now there are churches that are closing because there's a generation now that aren't as absorbed and invested in it. You know, they're not having the bake sales anymore or anything. People aren't attending church. And I don't know if it's a chicken and the egg thing where it's our culture that has kind of driven people away, or whether it's the religious cultures that are driving them away. But I don't know if we're more or less enlightened now, and that's why, we're kind of stepping away
Well, I
from.
mean, I went to a Jesuit college for undergrad, and my Eastern religions professor was, on the down low, a Tibetan Buddhist monk. Like, he would luncheon with the Dalai Lama in the
Ooh.
summers, and he had mixed feelings about teaching at a Jesuit place, because he felt that there was value to many of the beliefs, and also the bureaucracy of the church was glacial in the way it would change to adapt to society and people and their needs. And I think that glacial change, incredibly slow, like creakingly slow, is probably why we're at where we're at, with a lot of people hiving off because it just didn't adapt to the world that we live in right now. Like,
Right.
we wouldn't try to drive a car on a road that was built 2,000 years ago, or even 1,000 years ago, and expect it to have the same efficiency as driving a car on a road that we built this year, or last year. And that hasn't been repaired, at least. I mean, the Romans made some great roads, but they're still not something that you want to take your EV down. And I think assuming or expecting our scripture from 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago to apply to our lives now, without
Mm.
adaptation and redaction, without a living dialogue with that belief, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hanging onto the window ledge by your fingertips in terms of power and influence too.
Yeah,
But
my
it just
my
doesn't
my
work.
wife was raised Jewish, and one thing I like about just hearing how that was very different, going to synagogue and everything, because the dialogue and the ongoing interpretation, and like that's a significant part of that tradition. As a kid raised Catholic, asking a question, and I know you know this, if you asked a question about what the Bible meant, or something that didn't make sense, you were probably shamed and told to shut up. Whereas for my wife in the synagogue, asking questions were encouraged to have a deeper understanding of how things fit and how they didn't fit. And it's fascinating to see just the profound difference that has in one's approach to knowledge. That asking questions doesn't mean that there's something wrong with your faith, or that you're an unbeliever. It means you want to understand your belief better.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I am of that generation that in catechism class, we still had the nun standing behind us with a Willie McCovey 36-ounce bat. I mean, so spare the rod, spoil the child, right? Um, I want to
So,
move
fun
in.
thing about that quote is they're talking about a shepherd's rod, which was meant to guide the sheep, not hit them.
Well, isn't that
We have a
ironic?
really bad habit of taking bits out of the Bible. It's a pet peeve of mine because I've got a degree in this, of taking quotes and like just sort of shifting what they mean for the convenience of what we're trying to say. So, spare the rod, spoil the child. It's not about beating your kid, it's about finding a way to guide them. If you
Right.
don't guide your children, you will have terrible kids. Hitting your kids, you don't hit your sheep. Like, you don't expect
Yeah.
a good result by just beating your sheep.
Yeah.
That sounds dirty.
We will.
Anyway,
No. Anyway, move.
moving along.
Yeah. Right. No, I mean, yeah, I'm fully aware of the meaning, which is why I was. That was more of a plea from me. Spare the
Yeah.
rod, spoil the child. I want to move into uh, some cultural things here.
Hmm.
A lot of cultures have their own myths. I'm going to use that word just for now, about spirits, demons, and the afterlife. From your studies, which traditions align most closely with your personal
Hmm.
experiences from the spirit world? Is there one that you say, okay, that makes a little more sense to me now?
Yes. And I mean, I've got a degree in comparative religious studies because I was trying to figure this out because Catholicism didn't do it. And, I studied Hinduism and Buddhism, Taoism, and all of the other things in between, dug as much as I could into, world lore, tried to read between the lines with what's come down to us from pagan and pre-Christian beliefs. The one that has spoken to me most profoundly is Tibetan Buddhism, and specifically, uh, Robert Thurman has an introduction to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which he has a unique ability to take the idiom of this ancient Asian tradition and make it accessible to us here raised in the West. And their descriptions of the spirit world and how we interact with the spirit world, what the process of dying feels like, and leaving your body behind, and what that journey is like, all of that resonates most deeply with my own experience. It is not a perfect one for one, but it is as close as I have come. I would never present myself as a Tibetan Buddhist. I've not been, initiated in anything. I have a friend who is actually a Rinpoche up in Toronto, who had been an occult student of mine way back in the day. Uh, and it's the closest. It's still not a perfect fit, but it's the closest.
Hmm. That's the thing that speaks to you as an
Yeah,
individual.
the thing that like really gets me is there's this Tibetan their way of looking at the world is there's these lokas. Think of them as different locations.
Hmm.
And they're all layered on top of one another. And depending on kind of where you fit as a spirit, as an ensouled being, you perceive each one differently or you don't perceive them at all. There was a line in Thurman's introduction of if a medium were able to perceive all of the spirits around them all at once, they would just go crazy. Like you would not be able to hold any thought in your head because everything is just all absolutely populated by all of these different things. So instead, you're seeing slices, pieces of this multiverse,
Okay.
and you move through it based on what you resonate with. And sometimes things kind of zoom through and may intersect with your particular slice of it, but it's a little bit everything everywhere all at once, and you only see what you're looking at, what you're
Hmm.
tuned to.
So it seems to me that they give you an opportunity to shop, as it were, and take this and take a little of that, and what means to you.
Well, and some of it's about the karma of how you're what one you're born into. Like what were you doing in your previous life? They also have one of the best visions of hell, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Um, Pretons, hell beings, like if you have been a truly, truly, truly awful person and you die, and you miss all of the opportunities in the bardo, the stage between, to actually like do something about that. You are reborn into basically a pocket dimension that is just you, all by yourself, in a hell created by your own evil.
Hmm.
And you stew in that until you figure a way out of it, until you heal yourself, until you change, until something about you breaks that egg that you have built for yourself out of your own vile behavior.
Yeah. A virtual metaphysical escape room. I love
Yeah,
it.
well, a lot of visions of hell, we are usually told, raised Catholic and Christian, that other religions don't have a heaven and hell. And certainly they don't have one quite the same way we do. But
Hmm.
in reading visions of hell in multiple systems, like the Garuda Purana in Hinduism, the Tibetan Buddhism, what hell in most other religions is not a final destination. It is a place where you are rehabilitated, where you face the evil that you've done, where you are confronted by it, and you that may manifest as torture and terrible things judging you, but it's not that you just stay there forever, 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 and you never get back out.
Right.
It's not a maximum security prison and you've got an eternity sentence. It's about getting you to get out of those habits. It's about getting you to release the things that either made you that way or the choices that led you to be that, so you can change and become something new.
Hmm. Okay, so we come to the proverbial fork in the road for an interviewer here because I was going to take
Hmm.
one off ramp. Now I'm going to take a different off ramp
Okay.
because it's something you talked about, versions of hell. Now, as someone who is not entirely sold on the demonic as like a physical manifestation in our world, the idea of it probably goes back much further than the Egyptians, but here's my idiot's guide. In other words, my guide to what I think about this. It seems that the stories were so good in ancient times that they were appropriated by other cultures, modifying them a bit. For example, hell is actually a female entity spelled with one L.
If you're
Um,
talking Norse myth, yes. And you've
talking
got
north,
Ereshkigal in Sumer and Babylon, who is very, has a lot of things similar to what we would recognize from hell as she's depicted, especially with like modern riffs in the Marvel universe.
right? Yes. So hell was, half of her was beautiful, the other half ugly, representation of the duality of man. um, Hades and so forth, and all these terms that have been appropriated. The Nordic idea of hell was this vast, cold wasteland because that was the landscape in which they lived. When we get into the Middle East, hell suddenly becomes this fiery, hot thing, which is representation of the landscape in which they lived.
Yeah, we get the lake of fire directly from the Egyptian Book of the Dead.
Right. So, and again, we're talking. I don't want to oversimplify this, but this was their surroundings.
Hmm.
Whether it's ice and snow or desert and heat. But it seems like a lot of these stories, and this is where my faith started to wander. I said, these stories are so good that it sounds to me like they were borrowed by different cultures with a different spin. And then, of course, you have people like Dante and Milton come along, and people have appropriated, the seven seals of hell. And the stories were so good. And a lot of this was a literary creation. So I want to get out of the way and get your thoughts on that.
I have many thoughts. The first is what you're describing is called religious syncretism. Basically, when cultures merge and interact with one another, usually through just merchant trading, and the Middle East, the ancient Middle East especially, was a place where there was a lot of trade, a lot of travel, and a lot of like different little groups. You had the Hittites and the Assyrians and the Babylonians and all of their descendants. You had the folks from the ancient Mediterranean, and each of them had a different language, but also a different cultural language, a different mythological language. And when they would mix and merge, sometimes they'd borrow, sometimes one version of Zeus would start to influence Jupiter. Like we know that very clearly from like the Romans did that intentionally. Um, there's this wonderful melting pot time period, but from about 300 before the Common Era, so 300, we'd say BC,
Right.
or BCE, and 300 AD or CE. There's this 600-year pocket where there is most of what we recognize as these stories that have come down to us were boiling in a cauldron of cultural exchange. Modern magic, like Western ceremonial magic, most of our myths and our stories, and certainly our idea of what is a demon and what is an angel, all come from this crucible of cultures warring with one another, conquering with one another, sharing with one another, and swapping stories.
Hmm.
Uh, because I get asked about demonology a lot, I am probably, I think I am the only person active in the paranormal who took demonology from Jesuits in an academic setting. So that was one of my college courses. And I wrote the book, the Dictionary of Demons. And it's been a fascination for me, but I'm also not approaching it from the perspective of a theological demonologist. I knew Lorraine Warren. We swapped war stories. We didn't always agree. And, she presented herself much more as a theological demonologist. She's coming at it from the perspective of a believer in fundamental Catholicism.
Mm-hmm.
And demons are fallen angels. They are a result of the war in heaven. They have been cast out. They are damned creatures. They live in hell, and their whole purpose is to try to drag more souls down to feed Lucifer or something. But like souls are the currency of hell in her worldview, and demons are the things that are after them. But if you dig through the mythology and the folklore and you look at the cultural exchange and the texts that have been left behind from pre-Christian and the Jewish messianic stuff all the way back to Sumer, Babylon, those things are on clay tablets with the cuneiform, the wedge-shaped writing. We see references to what we'd recognize as demons, Pazuzus back there. He's really popular thanks to the Exorcist whole thing. And he's not the only one. Beelzebub, Asmodeus, a whole rogues gallery of names that we're familiar with.
Right.
But some of them are gods back then. Some of them are spirits that you actually pray to if you're trying to protect yourself from demons. Pazuzu is a really good example of that. Is in his native place, the indigenous point where Pazuzu begins. Although he's presented as a demon, the word is better understood in the Greek sense of daemon, which is just a different class of spirit, neither good nor bad, and he had charge over, he had the ability to command or protect from other demonic spirits, other evil spirits, unclean spirits. So Pazuzu showing up for something was often as a guardian. The Egyptians had a similar, not quite god, that fit in the same thing. And you're going to laugh at the name, though, because it's tutu, like the little pink thing your kid wears when she's going to a ballet class. And Tutu also held this position of being kind of a guardian between humanity and these other spirits that could be really rough and tumble, that were usually representations of natural disasters and chaos and illness. And when you called upon them, you would make a sacrifice, you would make a prayer to Tutu or Pazuzu or any of the other ones that held this position, because you were trying to get them to call their dogs off.
Mm-hmm.
And I bring that up because where we get our way of looking at demons and demonology, angels and heaven and hell, it's way more complicated back then. It is not black and white. It's very much shades of gray. And we in inheriting the stories, we have simplified them to a point where they lose a lot of their nuance.
Hmm.
And I mean, they make great sensational things like, ooh, demons, it's
Oh,
out
sure.
to eat your soul. And back then it wasn't that simple. It was never that simple.
Well, do you think modern ghost and or demon encounters are kind of shaped or informed by ancient folklore, or are those stories rooted in real phenomena that people have faced?
Well, first I will say I absolutely believe that there are spirits and that they exist, that we have encounters with them. And I also recognize that the way in which we perceive them, interpret them, and report those experiences as we articulate them is 100% colored by our expectations,
Hmm.
by the folklore and beliefs that we are steeped in, and even by pop culture. A pet project of mine, I've never been able to like really dig into this for serious research. I want to see how many haunted hotels had scary children in them before Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Oh, I feel the same way about The Exorcist and Ouija boards.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, and
Oh, I
Exorcist and
mean,
Ouija boards, you can absolutely like that one. You can definitely.
that was
It
that
was a
was the
parlor
line of
game. It was
delineation
a
right there.
dating game in the early part of the 20th century. Like it was a way to get like real close and like tee hee hee, and you can kind of touch hands at a time
Touch
when
your
showing
knees
your ankle
together.
wasn't okay.
I know. And then suddenly it becomes, the portal to hell.
Oh
You know,
yeah, now it's like, oh goodness, every Ouija board is just a doorway, just waiting to blast your face off as you've
I know.
summoned something. And as a kid, of course, I played with Ouija boards. I absolutely encouraged friends to play with Ouija boards. And one thing I learned really quickly is whatever your expectations are, if you've got that room of people whipped up expecting it to be scary, it will become scary. And the question then becomes, are those spirits that are showing up and putting on a mask because it's convenient? You've now presented this nice, convenient costume for them to wear in order to scare the pants off of you. Or how much of it is you, the
Right.
people creating an experience? It always makes me think there was the Philip experiment, uh,
Yeah.
which was a Toronto paranormal research group back in like the 60s and 70s.
Right.
And they made a ghost. There's a Tibetan Buddhist idea of tulpas, this sort of like created spirit, like
Sort of
enough
thought
imagination
form.
goes into
Yeah.
shaping something, but it's born out of human imagination and will. So they tried to do it intentionally. In magical and occult traditions, it can be called a construct, an astral construct. There's a whole lot of different techniques to do it. So
Yeah.
they make their little ghost Philip. They build into his kind of programming a few details that are historically inaccurate, so that if they communicate with him and people who don't know that he's been a created spirit, he'll have a few inaccuracies so it's him. Um, it's an old technique that people used to use to make sure you weren't copying their work. You put in a couple of only that they're
Right.
fake, like it's a reference to somebody's birthday. And if they copy your work wholesale and they have that in there without explanation, so that's how Philip works.
Yeah. It's like putting $100 bill in the back of a book.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't tell you they found it, they didn't finish the book.
Well, the thing is Philip was fantastic. Like once they really like spent a year or so doing this, they had table tipping, they had Ouija sest. Philip was a very active spirit.
Yeah.
I remember as a very young person seeing them perform with Philip on, I think it was That's Incredible, early 70s, where there were a lot of TV shows that did a whole bunch of stuff into the paranormal. I had the opportunity, honestly, the privilege to meet Al Peacock before he passed. And he was one of the people who was part of the Philip experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And I will never forget, like, he leaned in as we were talking about it. He's like, it's all us. Like, everything he'd seen, he formulated the belief that everything we're experiencing, we are shaping it.
Yeah.
I don't think all of it comes only from us, but I do think that the way we perceive it is a type of language. The face a spirit presents is a way of trying to communicate with us, or us trying to communicate and understand it.
Yeah.
And it is a dialogue.
Yeah.
And that's
Well, I
a
mean,
complicated thing to convey, but yeah, that's anyway.
yeah, I mean, well, Parker Brothers doesn't instruct you to light candles around a Ouija board, take it into a dark attic or a cemetery. That's us who does that for the thrill of the hunt or whatever. I want to circle back on another off ramp now where
Yeah.
you were talking about the occult. So I have a question about that. A lot of people, and I'm sort of on that bubble myself. So they think of the occult as something hidden and forbidden. Um, do you believe certain occult teachings should remain like
Mm.
secret, or do you think there's benefit that people can derive with those if they were shared with the rest of the world rather than, I don't want to insult anybody by calling it a niche,
Mm.
but you know what I mean, where can we benefit by certain things, and do you ever say, God, you people don't understand, there's so much to be gained here?
Well, first, I mean, the word occult, of course, means hidden, like occluded, like shadowed.
Right.
And at first, that secrecy, barring things like mystery religions, that secrecy in the Middle Ages and Renaissance in Western Christianized Europe, that was a necessity. It wasn't hidden because people were trying to gatekeep it. It was hidden because people were trying to make sure they didn't get picked up by the Inquisition, tortured and killed for having this not sanctioned way of looking at the world. So there's a layer of secrecy in the occult that is trying to avoid the way certain cultural norms may reject that way of looking at things or those practices.
Okay.
And so the secrecy is for the protection of the people who are involved in it. The
Okay.
other layer is the sort of mystery tradition layer, where it's not secret because you're hiding it from people. It's secret because unless you experience it directly, it is nearly impossible to explain. And so there's a level of initiatory experience. There's a level of delving into this world and this way of looking at the world that is necessary before you can even understand the language. And that makes it a little bit more complicated to share. I am a big proponent of information should be out there, available and free, and people should be allowed to make their own decision about it. Like, I've lived my life on that. I have founded web pages, written books on that. I don't think anything should be taboo in terms of teaching people about how their psychic abilities work. I do a lot of work on psychic vampirism, and at the time where I was writing those books in the 90s, the big push was, you can't tell people how psychic attack works. What happens if they are just now attacking everybody?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, you can hand somebody a hammer, and you can't control whether or not they're going to build a house or beat somebody over the head with it. One would hope that they will build a house with it, but the threat is always there. You can't. The information itself is not responsible for what people do to abuse it. And if the information isn't out there and freely available, people can't protect themselves from those who would abuse it. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
need to understand it in order to protect yourself.
Yeah, and the final thing before my time is up here, I wanted to ask you before George takes over was, symbols and rituals play a large part in the occult, as they do, you know, in other like things. But why do symbols hold so much power across cultures and and spiritual practices.
They are the architectural foundation of our mind, the way in which we think, the symbols, the stories that we are exposed to, that we grow up with, the ones that resonate with us. I know off camera you'd brought up Carl Jung,
Yeah,
and he is a huge influence on me. And because without getting too deep into that, his idea of archetypes, that there are these massive forms born of myth and story that live in our minds and that actually live on a shared collective consciousness, that there's not only the ones that we have developed personally, but there's this vast sea with barely visible forms moving in its depths, and those forms are the shapes of stories that our ancestors have told and that our foreparents have told, and they have gained a kind of life of their own, and they inform our imaginations, they surface in our dreams, and they encode the human understanding of self and universe.
kind of genetically almost, or
It's funny because when I was first getting into Jungian psychology, the idea of a genetic memory was truly fringe. And these days it's borne fruit and kind of taken as, yes, there is such a thing as genetic memory, that there is generational trauma, that we have that things can be passed down in that way. So yeah, it's been fascinating over what, 4 decades now and change, to like really see that things that he was pointing toward, that our parents' parents and the stories that were told 10 generations back and the experiences and what we carry does come down
Mhm.
to us, and we hold it on a molecular level.
Yeah, it's almost like matrixing or pareidolia.
Mm.
Those are things on a, the ability to try to spot threats out of shapes, things like that. We're going to come back in the second hour. We have some questions in chat, and by the way, remind you, keep those questions coming for Michelle. We will get to them, and we'll come back after the top of the hour. We'll talk more about Carl Jung, but until then, George, it's all yours.
Ken, tell me if I'm wrong on this too, but I believe that we may be the first show before Coast to Coast, before Darkness Radio, that brought up the topic of genetic memory. Would that be fair?
I don't think
Well,
nobody's asked me about it yet. So yeah.
Michelle actually brought up brought that up tonight, but yeah, I immediately went there because it's something that I mentioned matrixing and pareidolia as, and as somebody who doesn't know what the hell I'm talking about, maybe we'll come back talk about that in the second hour too. So see you
Yeah.
soon.
All right. What I want to do, I do want to get to these questions only because there's a bunch of them.
Yeah,
The
and
first
try to keep
few.
me on track, because I will go down rabbit holes with stories.
Well, in this particular case, again, I always have to say, as Ken also says, is that it's an amazing audience that we have each and every week. Very like minded. And this will give you a chance to have a glass of water and quench your throat, But all right, this first couple of ones come from a gentleman by the name of Ray Paulovich. And these were nice comments. I've been following Michelle since before their first book. I actually worked in the print center that printed out
Oh,
some of their old manuscripts. They were intriguing even then. And he follows up with, I also got a chance to stay at the Inspiration House when they owned it. It was amazing.
yeah, I missed that place, and I also feel like it was the right time to pass it into a different caretaker's hands.
Gotcha. One of our show hosts from Well, That Was Weird, which is alternating on Thursday nights, Aaron Bush, wanted to chime in also. Question is, what is your position on abilities as it pertains to trauma?
Mm.
Like Jung's discussion, Ernst de Sement. Do you think abilities are often earned this way?
I don't know if I would use the word earned, but I certainly would use the word honed. I don't go too much into my childhood, I mean, I do go into like I was born with a heart defect. I was in the hospital for the first 5 years of my life, but also the family I grew up with was complicated, and so there's a lot
Right.
to unpack there. Enough that I've really tested the poker face of my therapist. So from my own experience, which is really what any of us can ever speak from, I have absolutely honed my empathic abilities, my ability to read people, in some cases as a survival instinct to be able to predict the moods and behaviors of otherwise unpredictable people around me. And
Okay.
I think some of my abilities sort of lean towards certain styles, certain types of abilities. Like some things have been developed over others because they were convenient to my survival at the time.
Right.
Um, with the one exception being my grandmother actively honed my remote reading abilities for her own purposes. That's a whole nother story. Um, but like there's a really deep conversation to be had about the relationship between our emotional development, our psychic development, and our relationship with our trauma and our ability to like heal from that and learn to trust ourselves. Because if you haven't reached a point where you can have a conversation with yourself honestly about what you're feeling and why, you're really going to struggle to accurately assess any kind of psychic perceptions that you have. Really easy to mistake for, is it anxiety or am I having a psychic experience?
Well, that's what makes it very difficult
Yeah.
to pinpoint what would happen under those circumstances. How many times has we categorized poltergeist activity due to traumatic events, sexual, mental,
Mm.
physical?
Well, and the
At
whole
least,
poltergeist thing, like the fascinating idea of the poltergeist nexus, somebody who's going through emotional and mental crisis, and that is coming out as like unintended psychokinetic outbursts.
right.
And I am a big believer in that like, and I don't think that it's just, 13-year-old girls. We actually, with Paranormal State, there was a woman who was going through menopause and was
Yes.
having poltergeist stuff around her. And there was really no avoiding the fact that her change of life was tied to these unconscious psychokinetic events.
Yes, we actually had a guest on. She is serving a life sentence for apparently murdering her child. They did a docu series on Hulu, Angels and Demons, I think was the name of it. But anyway, she is in prison, and all of a sudden, she's going through menopause now. She was a teenager when she first had this type of phenomena occurring, and now, as she's going through menopause, it's occurring while she's in prison. So, what you're saying is absolutely true. Let me continue with these questions here. Mystic
Also, I just
Whispers.
want to say it's really nice to hear from Ray and know that you're still around.
Oh, exactly. Oh, okay. Mystic Whispers podcast channel. Who is your favorite author?
Oh, that's a loaded one.
You right?
For fiction, I think Tanith Lee. I might say Ray Bradbury. Like there's a whole cluster, of course, but Tanith Lee probably had the most influence on some of my own style for fiction writing. If we're talking nonfiction, I'm not sure that I have a favorite for nonfiction. I mostly just have people I can't stand. There's plenty of people I like their work, but there's plenty of people I'm just like, nope.
Like my book with Andrea. Why can't this show up? All right. Just
it's
right.
it's those things. That's why I just have all these books here
There
because
we
I can
go.
never get those funky things to work.
This is the one I
Um,
wrote with Andrea, and I never went to the Conjuring House. Okay, that's all I had to say about that. So look at that.
who, yeah, it's a loaded question also because I'm friends with so many writers now too, and so there's just some people who are really dear to my heart. Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough is another one, both a favored writer for just my favorite escape when I was 15 and 16 were her vampire books, and also I got to meet her and become a peer with her when we were doing the convention circuit at like Dragon Con and everything, and she is just the she's somebody who I would read her book and I would come away with a list of at least a dozen words that I had to look up in the dictionary. Like, and I love her brain. She is whip smart. She is a practitioner. And we would just sit after hours and talk about reincarnation and tarot. And yeah, so Yarbrough is another really good one. She's a grand master of the horror genre.
All right. And quick answer to this, if you have a quick answer to it, what is the most compelling paranormal experience?
It was in Marion, Ohio. It was with Paranormal State. I did not know that it was 3 weeks after a resident in the house had hung herself in the garage. And I stepped into the echo of that moment and honestly needed a little therapy to get it back out of my head.
Wow. Wow. I want to bring up therapy in the next hour, to
Yeah,
be
that
sure.
one, that one, that one messed me up.
Erin Bush again. Can a human with abilities unknowingly be a psychopump?
A psychopump, a guide for the dead, somebody. Yes, absolutely. One of so one of my theses in college was shamanism, and the world shamanic beliefs, and the idea of people as mediators between the living world and the world of the dead is key to that. Uh, Put simply, in that way of looking at the world, you don't just wake up one day and be like, I am going to be like this. The spirits come to you, the spirits call you. You may know nothing about how to control it, and you probably don't. And it's only in accepting the call and then learning about it that you can become conscious about it. But absolutely, it's very common. And I think a lot of people, because we don't have a good safety net for it to understand what this is, what the context is, a lot of young people who might be approached by spirits that are seeking help or even acting as guides interpret those experiences as attacks or as something that's scary and then shut down because nothing in
Yeah.
their culture has told them otherwise.
Yes. Yeah. Villainize it right off the bat. It's the easiest way to stop moving forward. And it's a shame. I've experienced that with other people too, who just, wait a minute. This is what we're trying to do. This is what we're trying to experience, and to back off of it doesn't make any sense to me as an investigator. Finally, Ray Polovich has another question for you as well. Is there something that could be inside someone that prevents them from being able to experience spirits and paranormal? Is there
Mm.
something that would block someone? Now, you're aware of aphantasia?
Yes, absolutely. So that's only going to affect whether or not you perceive it. Like some people definitely
Right.
find it as a stumbling block because psychics like me, I'm a very visual person. I'm a very visual experiencer. I describe my experiences in a visual way. If you don't experience things visually, you're going to go, well, it doesn't work like that for me. So obviously it's not working. But I think Ray's question is a little different because I've had people come to me with a very similar thing. It seems like they're either locked off or like everybody else around them might be having an experience. They are open to the idea of the experience. They kind of want the experience themselves. And it's almost like their head's in a box. There's a couple of things for that. Sometimes it's just the way a person is wired, and they're not likely to experience it up here. But if they are quiet in paying attention, they may notice that they get body feels, that there are an instinctive thing that is beyond language that they really can't articulate, that they are experiencing it in a way just so different from the way everybody else is talking about their experience that it's really easy to discount. That said, some people also unconsciously have put up boundaries, sometimes because they had a bad or a scary experience as a child, because they
Yes.
grew up in a circumstance where someone shamed them or told them that they must be afraid or told them that this was bad and dangerous and they needed to shut it down. And it's very difficult as an adult to figure out where child you put those walls, like where you close that door because you did it so instinctively. I would say that that last one is probably the most long-term debilitating one that requires a lot of personal work to heal your relationship with those experiences, what you were told to believe, how you were told to approach these experiences, and reclaim them as something empowering as opposed to shameful or scary.
From a social media perspective, just before we go to break here, as a matter of fact, I'm going to hold that thought
Mm.
for just a second. As Ken, you come on, we are going to take our break at this time, but we've got a lot more to cover with you, Michelle, and we'll be back in about 4 minutes. It'll give you time to step away, but when we come back, we'll continue this incredible interview. You guys stick with us there in the chat. We'll be back just on the other side. You're watching Dead Air Live on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel. We'll be right back after these messages, Ken.
We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Now showing on Dead Air Full Spectrum YouTube channel.
New episodes of Extremely Strange coming soon.
Every alternate Thursday on our channel.
Every Thursday. Opposite. Well, that was weird.
In cemeteries across the world, some headstones hold more than just names and dates. They preserve cherished family recipes, etched in stone as a lasting tribute. These recipes are more than instructions for a dish. They are connections to loved ones, memories of shared meals, and a way to keep traditions alive. In this series, we'll be honoring these unique culinary legacies by bringing these recipes to life. With respect and gratitude, we'll cook the dishes exactly as they were meant to be enjoyed.
New episodes of Last Bite coming soon.
Welcome to my party, we're just getting started. A life is a dream or a nightmare scarring. Hand me a drink cause I think I'm going all in. Get me a shrink who can catch me when I'm falling. Cover up my scars for the handlebars. Crashing in my car, wake up in a bar. I'll be a superstar, just on my avatar. This world is so bizarre, empty out the reservoir. Yeah, I'm taking 6 shots, yeah, straight to the face. And I wanna get lost, I'm sick of this place. Don't know how to stop when I'm feeling this way. So I'm taking 6 shots till I'm feeling okay. I think I'm going crazy, don't think I'll get home safe. So I'm taking 6 shots all straight to the face. I'm taking 6 shots, are you coming with me? I'm taking 6 shots, yeah, straight to the face. And I wanna get lost.
Welcome back to the show, guys, for our second hour with a very special guest, Michelle Belanger, who during the break, she was chatting with us and said because she's the first one on our intro song, she wants top billing now. So we'll have to make some adjustments in our intro, Ken.
Yeah, also starring George and Ken.
Yes. Again, thank you for joining us. Yeah, I wanted to get into this topic just very briefly. I know Ken has another direction that he still wants to go with you, and then I have a ton of quick questions for you. But the social media aspect of it, we've been privileged. I've surfed through TikTok primarily, but also, YouTube and even Facebook. Um, Reaching out to people in the field. Some of them have 250,000 followers. Some of them have 500,000 followers, and they get it. When they come on the show, they're really great. They're wonderful, and they even promote us, which we're blessed to have them as friends, the connections within the field. But if you go onto any of those platforms and you type in paranormal TikTok, whatever it may be, it's just a bunch of these content creator
Mm.
based, focused impersonators, as far as I'm concerned. And just in the discussions of what we were talking about with regards to people with abilities and don't know what to do and don't know where to go, and we still do not really have that outlet out there. Is it frustrating that we are here in the year 2025 and still are kind of roaming in the dark?
That and that there are more grifters than there
Oh,
are genuine people. And if you don't know what questions to ask, if you're just starting out, you have absolutely no way of knowing who is genuine and who is selling you snake oil. And you can get your head so turned around so quickly. Like the whole con spirituality movement of just, I, I have a lot of really angry thoughts about it because especially with the sort of occult influencer, paranormal influencers, a lot of them really are just out to make a buck. I sometimes really feel for Harry Houdini, who got so pissed off that he basically started all of the whole paranormal debunking because there were so many people who were taking advantage of people and he could see the lies. And yeah, no, it gets really frustrating. And when you speak out as somebody who is a believer, who is out there as a psychic, when I speak out and I'm like, not all of this is real, some people hear none of it is real.
yep.
And then they're like, how can you say that? And I'm like, no, you need to actually approach this with not a mind so open that your brain's falling out. Like you have to approach it with, I guess you'd say, some discernment. Um, I'm a fan of read a book, but these days people can just make AI slop, and my goodness, is that stuff terrible? And it will really, really like take you down the wrong path. Uh, More than that, I think the best we can do is if there are people whose voices, whose experiences really resonate with you, and there are people that they recommend, and you can like actually track these people down, track down what they've done, what their experience is, uh, try to follow that. But man, I wouldn't want to be, a 12-year-old kid on the internet trying to figure this stuff out with like the experiences that I had at that age and the questions that I had at that age, because I would get sucked into something terrible very quickly.
Yeah, there are no guardrails,
No.
and it is again, it's terrible enough trying to go through adolescence and trying to understand things, and you're clicking on Google and then you're getting on social media and you're getting help from people who shouldn't be offering. And there I only wish that there was either an app or a website that was true blue, 100% run
Mm.
and organized by those people that are greatly respected in their field. And again, that would come down, I think, really to a selective group of people making that decision who's responsible
You
for
know,
these websites.
back in the day, Jeff Belanger's, not related, website Ghost Village was a really good clearinghouse for stuff like that. And I don't know anything that is a good comparison now. Partly because we've shifted from blogs and written stuff as the main preferred way of accessing information to we want it in a video, and those are so much harder to. I don't know. There isn't a good. There is not a good map to lead you through the very thorny forest of misinformation and people who just want to either make a buck or
Yep.
feel special because they have presented themselves as an authority when they're really not.
I guess, we may be, anybody who started in this 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, dinosaurs now. Michelle, are we failing?
No, I don't think so. I think some of us haven't adapted to the new way of communicating, and I don't think that that's good or bad. I think that that's inevitable. I know, like, once it hit TikTok, I was like, nope, I'm out. Like, this is not a platform I can wrap my head around, and I'm not going to try. I'm not going to pretend that I can do it. I had some friends trying to like shove their TikToks in my faces, and I gamely did my best, and I was just like, this does not work for me. Um, I think it's just sort of the way of things. Like, everybody goes through their cycles. Uh, if we're failing at all, or I would say if there's something that we could do differently, because I don't think we're failing. I think telling some of the stories of what it was like, not to try to tell people to go back to that, but to give them context, to have them educated about what the foundations were that they have been built upon, that their experiences and that this world has been built upon. I know I've been doing a lot of that for the goth and queer thing, because I realized as somebody in my 50s who was a queer pagan goth in the 80s and 90s, uh, I'm kind of the last man standing in some of my social
Yes.
groups.
Yeah.
So many of the people from back in that day, like, I have a long list that I have to pour one out for, of people who have either passed to illness, passed to depression, passed to drug use, were murdered. Like, a lot of us didn't make it out.
Yeah.
So I think realizing when you're someone who's made it to this point and have been working in any niche community for 40 or 50 years, some awareness that you're the keeper of stories now. Like, you're the person who sort of like needs to be like, back in my day, I don't need you to be like it was back in my day, but I need you to hear what it was and how it was different and what battles we had to fight to get here.
Right.
So you are better equipped to fight your own battles as new things come your way.
I think the only thing I could say about the field that we can be happy about is there are gems out there. And again, with hundreds of thousands of followers that are doing right by the field. They're not doing a live broadcast and, hey, if I get, 1,000 likes, I'll go in the basement,
Mm-hmm.
or I'll break out the Ouija board, things of that sort. So there are shining few gems that we can look forward to being able to carry the torch, pass the baton to somewhere along the way. One other question, something that you and Ken were talking about earlier, and then Ken will take it for a little while here, and then I've got just some fun questions at the end. The difference between occult and cult.
Mm. That's a very popular question because we make the mistake of assuming that cult and occult are the same thing and brought from the same thing. Occult or occultism, it means occluded, hidden, and it refers in a blanket sense to a number of different religions, practices, spiritual paths, all of which have a mysterious element or a shadowy element, not in the sense of being dark, but in the sense that not everything is known or shared in the open. or a certain level of specialized knowledge and experience is required to fully understand the mysteries. I think mysteries, like the mysteries, is a better way of kind of presenting the occult. Magic, ceremonial magic, a lot of mystical practices. Yoga would fall under the occult, especially in like the 80s and 90s, back during the Satanic Panic. So all of these outside of the bounds of traditional dogmatic religions, organized religions, can fall under that umbrella. A cult, C-U-L-T. There's actually sort of two ways you could go with that. Speaking as a person with a degree in comparative religious studies, technically a cult is just a tiny religion. It's sort of like the seed that turns into, or could turn into, a religion. And it's about the size and sort of the fervency of it. The way that we understand cults now, culturally, is we only understand them in terms of one of those belief systems that has become toxic,
Right.
that is small, focused usually on a charismatic individual who
Yes.
is, in most cases, a controlling individual and has an overwhelming level of control on the beliefs and lives and practices of the people that they have gathered around them.
Right.
Most of our perception of cult these days is the central figure is a narcissist, they are predatory, and regardless of what the belief system might be, it is all being used in order to feed that person's ego and put all the power and all the money up the pyramid to them.
Okay. All right. And an occult does not fit that same description, or can?
Yeah, occultism is not the same thing. Again, it's really, especially when you're speaking it, they sound almost like the same thing. I will say during the Satanic Panic, there was a willful confusion between occultism and cults. Uh,
Sure.
and occultism is just a practice, usually that has magical or mystical elements. It can be dark, it can be light and positive. There's
Gotcha.
every different way of following these paths. And it is not actually that I think a key defining factor is for most occultists, it's a solo venture. You know,
Ah,
they're not bowing in front of some charismatic person who's telling them this is how you must do it and give me 1995 and I will, give you the next lesson. Although there are definitely some groups that style themselves that way. But generally, occultism in its classic sense is this profound personal journey through the mysteries of the universe, the things that are hidden from view, the things that are hidden from ordinary experience, the things that are usually on the edges or on the outside of organized religion, and are often pushed out of or looked down upon by organized religion because they put the power not in the hands of a priesthood, which weirdly is acting like a cult because all the power and all the money flows up.
yep.
Um, and that there is gatekeeping for who has access to God, who has access to miracles, who has access to like all of that stuff. Occultism, in most cases, most occult traditions are about a personal internal journey and seizing that power for yourself, understanding that power for yourself. And there's also frequently an element of knowledge, like really trying to understand the mysterious workings of the world.
You hear that, Ken? We are part of a paranormal occult.
Part and parcel.
I mean, that's the thing is like to most people, the paranormal is a version, it's a type of occultism.
Yeah.
So it falls under the blanket of the occult as far as they're concerned. And it's always been funny to me as somebody who kind of moves in the Venn diagram intersection of a lot of these, where paranormal people don't necessarily think of what they're doing as magic or ritual, or as, occultism in general. And yet we will say prayers or blessings. We cleanse houses. We will open or close some of the communication sessions in ways that will be indistinguishable from a witch, from another metaphysical practitioner. And it's really, some of it's just a matter of language.
Ken, we got to start working on a talisman for our show.
My other fun thing is pointing out that most mediumship is necromancy.
Ooh, there you
And
go.
would be indistinguishable from it. We
There
just
you
use
go.
different language.
There you go.
Well, Ken, I'll turn Michelle back over to you, and I'll be back a little bit later on. Rapid fire questions coming your way, Michelle. Thank you for your
Okay.
time.
All right. Thank you very much, George. As promised to you folks, we're going to talk a little bit about Carl Jung, who was a Swiss psychiatrist and, psychiatrist and psychotherapist. And he talked about archetypes. And speaking of individualism, we end up back on Carl Jung. Now, some of these archetypes, and you can tell us a little bit about, what all of this means, Michelle, but some of them include the shadow, the trickster, the wise old man, and you can take it from there. My question at the end of this, while you break down archetypes for people who may not realize what we're talking about, how does that play into psychic work?
Okay. Well, why don't I answer the question before I dig into the other stuff? Because the other stuff can take me all over the place.
Right. As it does me.
As my experience of psychic perception, and as someone who has taught other people how to interpret their perceptions for 40 years now, archetypes are a part of your internal language, the way in which your perceptions manifest to you. And understanding archetypes, understanding this set of symbols that we carry around, built from our lived experience, built from the stories and myths that we've been exposed to, and arguably also influenced by that collective unconscious, that mythic imagination shared by people. It's the language that the metaphysical, that the uncanny, that the psychic manifests to us in. So, simply put, when you go into a place that has some spirit, something, that thing does not have a physical form as we understand it, but it has an identity. It has a way of how it feels. We are not equipped with easy language either to picture that, to receive its identity, or to articulate it, to explain what we're experiencing. And so instead of words, instead of language, we end up with these forms, with these feelings, these things that are the closest thing to.
Right.
You had a picture of Slender Man up when we went to break. And I think that's a really good example of a story that started off as something created. It was not a real ghost, but it is something that taps into a deep archetype, this sort of watcher in the woods. So there's an older type of story that shows up in stories again and again that creates this sort of mental language, a container that we can put something into context that doesn't have a shape that is comfortable. So when you go out into the woods and you run across something that seems shadowy and intimidating, and it's like this sort of human but not, and something about it is very liminal and uncanny, and your background includes Slender Man, that is the easy archetype. That's what you're going to perceive it as.
Right.
That's the shape it will take. So I think in some ways you can think of archetypes as shapes that live in our unconscious and semi-conscious minds that can provide relatable forms for concepts that are too big for simple words.
And we're still there because even as enlightened as we like to think we are, if we run across something we've never seen before, just like the ancients,
Mm-hmm.
we tend to assign it a supernatural value because I guess, we're that full of ourselves, I guess.
Well, I think we we interface with this world and we don't understand most of it.
Hmm.
So the best way that we have to understand things is we tell ourselves a story of what we experienced. Most of history, most human knowledge is us telling ourselves a story that is the closest way of understanding what we just encountered.
Mm-hmm.
And it's our best guess. To kind of go back to archetypes, for folks who are familiar with the tarot, probably the most relatable way of looking like what is an archetype. The major arcana, the major trumps in the tarot, from the Empress to the Emperor, the Hanged Man, the Devil, all of those are archetypal images. A good portion of why the tarot speaks so deeply to people is they're all tapping into archetypal figures and the stories, and we read those cards because we know those stories. We know what they represent.
Yeah. Now, back to like Jung once again. Um, it was said, and you've probably gotten into his biography more. It was said or surmised that he had paranormal experiences of his own.
100% and absolutely. So first
Okay.
thing, let me dig into this because it's fun.
All right, go.
First, his thesis, his initial thesis to get all of his stuff, he had a cousin who was a medium. So he did his thesis on her mediumship and what that meant and how much of it was real, how much of it was psychological. Jung spent, much like Freud, most of his career kind of dancing this dance of I am a scientist and also an experiencer and a believer. He absolutely had what he believed was a spirit guide. An old man with heron's wings appeared to him when he was a child. He named him Philemon, or the spirit's name was Philemon. Jung had past life memories and experiences that he would translate and interpret and have interpreted with some of his experiences with Philemon. And probably most famously, when he corresponded a lot with Freud, who was a huge influence on him. They were best buds right up until
Mm,
Freud tried to place a very Freudian interpretation on Jung's experience of what eventually became his idea of the collective unconscious. He had this dream where he was first in a house, and the house he knew represented him. And many of us have had dreams like this, where you start going into parts of the house that don't actually exist, at least in the waking world, and you know that there's like some deep meaning to this. But he ends up excavating further and further, and he ends up in this deep atavistic part of the house, and there's bones and things. And his interpretation is he's almost in a primeval state, like he's reached down to the Neanderthal level of the collective unconscious. He writes the story, sends it off to Freud. Freud's like, oh no, you're just thinking about murdering your parents. Jung is incensed when he reads this letter, and he has a bookcase in his office. One of those legal lawyer bookcases that has the glass to protect
yeah.
the books. And Jung gets upset. And let's talk about unintentional psychokinetic events. Because Jung is just sitting there stewing as he's like, no, I just disagree. The glass shatters
Hmm.
at the moment that he gets upset. And he is aware on a profound level that was a reaction to him, that he caused that. Nothing else made the glass shatter. He got upset, glass went boom. So he had multiple experiences. There is a text that is a little easier to find. I went on a quest when I was an undergrad trying to get into Jungian psychology. You couldn't get this in the 90s. It is Jung's Red Book. It is an illuminated manuscript. It is all his art. It is all hand lettered. It is this thick. And it is his personal journey. I think of it as one of the 20th century's most impressive grimoires, a book of shadows, a magical book. It is a book of visions and dreams and insights, and it is a profoundly magical initiatory experience. It's one of the reasons why the Jung estate tried to keep it out of the public eye, because there's just no denying in that book how much magic and mysticism was a key part of all of his psychology. And the reason they had to keep that out was psychology was a very new science. Freud, when he wrote his book on the interpretation of dreams, he insisted that it be printed, the publication date be listed as 1900, even though it was technically printed in 1899, because he wanted to have it associated with the modern era.
Okay, yeah.
They were fighting for respectability. They were fighting to be taken seriously as a branch of science and not something paranormal, something that is just mystical and mysticism. Freud also definitely believed in the paranormal, kept it out of his papers for most of his life. But my favorite line in one of his things is, if we are to have proof of the paranormal, we will find it in dreams.
Interesting.
But you don't usually get that side of their lives because, again, they are the fathers of modern psychology, along with Otto Rank and a few other folks. And in order to get respectability, they hived off, like Cinderella's ugly stepsisters. They cut off their toes and they cut off their heels, and they tried to fit that glass slipper in order to prove to the scientific establishment that this was science. But I mean, it's this that lives in here. You can't take magic and mysticism and religion and spirituality out of it. Like, it's all in your head, and our minds are so profound.
So safe to say then his theories about the paranormal were informed ultimately by personal experiences.
Yes, absolutely.
Even though there may be some gray area there, because again, they're fighting for credibility within the scientific field. So let's go there for a second. Now, we hear all the time that we general investigators, have to prove this to the scientific field, which I gave up decades ago. I could care less. Using the scientific method, I have been of the mind that there are maybe elements of the scientific method that can be used in what we do, but it doesn't really apply, because if we are dealing with human beings, former human beings, if you will, human beings are very volatile creatures. We're moody. We don't have the same demeanor every day. Repeatable experiments don't really take into account that we're very volatile. We have ups and downs and good days and bad days. And if our human characteristics follow us into the afterlife, does it not make sense that that would also accompany us? Where it's like, Michelle, you're really nice last time we were here, but I'm just not in the mood today. I mean, I hope you understand, no offense. I'm not in the mood for you today.
There's a difference.
And God forbid if you bring someone else in to observe,
No, it's been a challenge because, early on working with PRS, they were like, hey, let's design some experiments. And I'm like, before we could ever establish a laboratory level of, this is a controlled laboratory experiment for psychicism, we first must answer the question, how does a person experience their psychic perceptions? Because if you don't know what that is, what their language is, everything else is going to make no sense. But I think it's important to understand that we lose a certain nuance when we think about controlled laboratory experiment and assume that means that is the scientific method and the only thing about the scientific method, because at the core of the scientific method is just empiricism, which is a fancy word of saying you are observing and keeping track of your observations, and you're trying to do so as objectively as possible. Um, I have, I like to be as scientific as feasible, knowing that there's always a point where it's just going to fall apart because it's all in here and it's really hard to control what's going on in here.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons that you will see me do either blindfolded readings when I'm doing psychic stuff, or
Yes.
what I do more with Katrina now, I'm fully remote. I see nothing. Like they're on a blank screen on a phone, and I'm usually on mute at this point. I have no idea where they're at, and I'm just doing whatever I'm doing. That is the best I can achieve in terms of a laboratory control to figure out like what is it I'm actually perceiving. Because
Talk
now
more.
I've removed like
Yeah.
I'm not smelling the place, I'm not hearing the place, I'm not seeing the place. There's nothing that I could be front loaded with. So I'm just here with my inner perceptions.
Okay, talk more about that. Is that like a sort of sensory deprivation that you self-imposed on yourself, or is that going a little bit too far?
It's more my way to make it as scientifically objective as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I have ruled out all of the things that somebody could say, oh, well, you know that it's going to be the Shanley Hotel, and so you've looked this stuff up, and even if you're not making things up, subconsciously you know that there's
Yeah,
this story here, and so that story has come up.
gotcha.
So I've ruled all that out. It helps that I'm very good at remote work, and I have been since I was very tiny. And I'll be honest, as like I am often in conflict with the scientific part of myself and the part of myself that experiences this stuff. Because the scientific part of myself cannot figure out why it works. Like I know what it feels like when it works. I know how to do it. I understand what I need to feel and how my environment needs to be for it to work.
Mm-hmm.
I know the sense of when it's accurate or when I think I'm not getting anything and I'm just reaching. But if you ask me like to scientifically explain how it's possible for me to zero in on Katrina and be like, oh, you got your haircut and it's a little darker, and like just have that sense of what she looks like over a distance. Or at one point I'm getting out of the van and I've got my blindfold on and I put my hand on the back of Jack Osborne's shirt, and I could see the color and the pattern just touching it. And scientifically, I can't explain why that works, only that it does. I happen to be in a unique position where my wife's grandmother was Dr. Vera Rubin, who, if you know the name, she is the mother of dark matter. She
I
is the
do.
person who
Yeah.
discovered dark matter.
Glad you brought that up.
And the way in which she discovered dark matter is she basically went through all of the data, like just collated data upon data. She was queen of spreadsheets. It runs in the family. And she found that as we're looking at the universe, as we're looking at stars and we're measuring them and we're looking at all of the ways in which things are moving through the cosmos and moving upon one another through gravity as we understand it and light, there's something influencing things that we can't account for and that our current way of measuring the universe does not show us. But when you put all of those data points out where you can see them, you can see that there's a negative space. There's a void. And it shows that we have a blind spot. Now, there's nothing that we have right now really that, and especially when she was doing it, like she couldn't make the thing that would see the blind spot. She could just point and say, there's a shadow there. It's blocking something, like something has to be there. And I feel, for me, that's how I understand the paranormal. There's something there, like all of these experiences that people report, even taking into account the way in which our emotional state, our beliefs, our expectations, our errors will influence and skew our reporting, of our experiences. There's still enough data there to tell me there's a shadow on what we perceive, on how the universe works, and we just don't have the ability to measure it yet.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating stuff. I was very aware of Illyria's grandmother, which is why I kind of brought it up in the pre-show before we went on air, because I'm so glad that you touched on that. That's phenomenal. Um, when we were all young bucks, many
Speak for
years ago,
yourself, Sonny. I'm still pretty good.
oh yeah, no, you're still a vibrant young lady. Yes, you are. We got into this. I'm going to prove ghosts exist. I'm going to document. I'm going to probably scare the shit out of myself in haunted houses because we're kids at the time, you know. There comes a point, if you're around it long enough, that you satisfy that. There is something else out there. I've been able to document it in my own experiences, the experiences of others, and whether that's photographic, audio, video, whatever. Um, everybody's had encounters, and we say, well, there's something else out there. Once you've reached that point, what is it that keeps you motivated beyond that first expectation? It's just kind of like, okay, yeah, I'm satisfied, but now I want to keep going. So what is it that motivates Michelle Belanger after, your initial questions have been answered about the existence of such things?
See, I feel like I got to cheat because there is no point in my life, my recollection of this life, where there was a question about it. Like, I've had experiences for as long as I've been cognizant. So I went into it knowing this shit's real. And what keeps me going is, but how?
Right.
Like, with the way that we understand the world and the way that we understand human cognition and the like how does it work? And how much does actually the thing that I think fascinates me the most is realizing how much each individual's first their ability to perceive it, then their ability to interpret that perception into something that makes sense to them, and then third, their ability to articulate that perception into something that will make sense to anybody else. And for every single person, those three steps are completely different. They go through very different lenses, which is why it sounds like we're all talking about different stuff when we try to report our experiences.
Right.
It's understanding that human element, that lens that each person brings to this multifaceted thing. Like, that there is something beyond that multifaceted gem that we all make up. And I think what keeps me going is trying to understand, not only to understand, but how do I best express how you get there?
Right.
When I know very keenly that the experience is unique to the individual, the language that we're going to use, the symbols, the archetypes, all of that, like everything that you lived through as a child, every book you read, every movie, every comic book, everything, every story that you accepted and everything that you rejected builds your language. So it's unique to you. How do I express how you get there so that you know when you experience it?
Yeah, and the other part of that equation is now you try to explain it to other people who may be undergoing that and reaching out to them as well. Because I don't know, I had a thought. You ever have a thought and it just disappears?
More and more these days. I think
Oh
it's something
God,
to
it
do with
was
having
one.
reached my 50th year and then some.
It was a wonderful thought too. But I know that George wants to come in with rapid fire, so I'll kind of end on this. What do you tell people um, who are living in fear and hesitation of evil and demonic who have never had an encounter of their own, but they just have embraced this. That we talked about Ouija boards. How many people like, I will never touch one of those things, and there's no real intellectual reason why you shouldn't. But there are an awful lot of people through, I don't know, I mean, I'll let you break it down. Pop culture, literature, movie. I mean, there's just this overload of information coming in. But how do you handle something like that when someone's just maybe irrationally scared?
Well, I think it's important to acknowledge that probably the most potent fear, the oldest fear humanity has, is the fear for the unknown. And that's the biggest hurdle for people, is you don't know what these things are. You have no ability to assess accurately if they're a threat. And if they're not physical, you don't really have a way to protect yourself. It's not like you get a ghost with a baseball bat. So understanding like where those fears are coming from is a good place to start. But also understanding that we've made a cottage industry in telling stories that really build on that fear, because on some level, like, it titillates us. Like we do, like, I mean, I love horror as a fiction genre as much as anything else. Like it's cathartic to, like, see Jason or Freddy or whatever, and understanding that there's a difference between how we present things in fiction to scare ourselves, and that we need to divest ourselves from those stories and accept that Freddy's not real, and not every Ouija board is a gate to hell, and it's not like how you've been told. There's not a demon lurking around every corner. They probably don't even care about your soul, and it's just not like that. So some of it is fighting the misinformation and the sensationalism, and just getting people to be open to the possibility that there is extraordinary stuff out there, and actually take a page from a scientist's book and approach it with wonder and a desire to understand first and foremost. And don't let the unknown or the stories make you shut the door in fear when what's actually on the other side is an extraordinary experience.
Yeah. From a moral perspective, I would just add, and this is me, that don't become desensitized, because somewhere in the spirit realm are people who were once living, breathing human beings.
Oh yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, if you believe that there are ghosts and the ghosts are human beings, please treat them as such.
Yeah, please, because they're not a trope or a device or plot device. And more, I think people generationally are being desensitized to that, because for all the views and likes and ad revenue you're doing it on the shoulders of the deceased. So that's just, get the hell off my lawn, you kids. That's, that's just, an old guy's perspective. But
No, that's
I
true
do
though.
want
There's a certain level of paranormal investigation that's just turned into trauma tourism, and it shouldn't be that way.
No, I could
And even
not.
non-human spirits should be accorded a certain amount of respect. If you assume that this is anything that is sentient and has like a personality, you should approach it compassionately first. And I
understand. And if you're screaming on YouTube that you've been possessed, you probably haven't.
No.
So with that, I'm going to bring George in. He got some rapid fire questions.
Okay, I'll try to rapid fire answer.
Come on in, pal. What's going on with this? Can I eavesdrop on this? Or?
Hell yeah, absolutely. Even chime in if you'd like to. But
are there prizes involved?
Yeah, it could be. It depends on how the answers are from Michelle. That's the important part. Kind of getting a cultural understanding of you, Michelle. Best vampire movie.
Lost Boys.
Worst vampire movie.
So many. Twilight.
Sparkly. You don't like sparkly vampires?
Oh, I had to watch it to, like, I spoke about it on Reels for some anniversary thing, and I had to watch it, and that was not my favorite.
I want to leave this earth if nothing else, saying that I'm one of the few. I have never watched a second of a Twilight anything.
Wouldn't have watched it if I hadn't had to actually talk about it. But yeah, not my favorite.
So I'm surprised Bram Stoker's Dracula was not your pick on this,
I liked it. I like Lost Boys better.
just from the entertainment value.
Entertainment value, the costuming, the music,
The
and
guy
then
on the
also
saxophone
how
with
it
the
is
shirt
such
off.
a smart, self-conscious retelling of Peter Pan.
Yeah, very much so. Very
Yeah.
much so.
Yeah.
Best vampire TV show.
I love Forever Night. I can't say that it's great in terms of, like, I don't think it holds up, but it was one of my first favorites. Trying to think of anything recent that like really grabbed me.
What about True Blood?
I mean, it wasn't bad. They sent me screeners because they had me making commentary about it on social media and stuff before like the episodes, and I was involved in a couple of the documentaries. I've got mixed feelings, partly because they used some of my quotes and had the actors quote them in like a Rolling Stone article, and I was like, "Hey, I said that though." Like,
Let me ask you a question. How about Salem's Lot?
I love the book. I don't hate the presentations. There's a new version of it that I watched with Illyria because she'd never read either the book or watched the old movie, and it was cute. I hate to say that the spooky Salem's Lot thing was cute, but like it hit all the feels of nostalgia in all the right ways.
Mm-hmm. I was a grown age teenage jock at the time when that kid went through the window, and in the original, and I was like, "Oh,
yeah, no, the original is great. Book is better."
Yeah.
Give us your worst vampire TV show.
Not fond of Angel. Actually, I hate Angel.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, the Buffyverse isn't terrible, but like, I think it's partly, I really don't like that actor.
Gotcha.
There are so many others that like, somebody's like, here, watch this vampire thing. I was like, oh God, what are they doing?
Best.
Yeah, go ahead.
Best demon movie.
Oh. Fallen.
That's a fantastic film. And it's one of those most people are not even aware of.
Yeah, no, it's
Denzel Washington. Fantastic.
Brilliant.
Worst demon movie.
Too many to name. I've got a laundry list of worst demon movies. Like a lot of the current ones are just, to me, cheesy and terrible. Any of the Exorcist sequels are bad. Lord, oh, you know what I didn't mention for good vampire things? Midnight Mass. Midnight Mass, brilliant, especially if you have Catholic trauma. Brilliant.
Exactly.
Great.
And best demon TV show. Have you caught Evil?
I have caught Evil. I like Millennium better.
Oh, really?
Oh my God. Millennium? Like Lance Hendrickson?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, no, that one I pull out the DVDs and rewatch pretty regularly.
Oh, same people who made the X-Files.
Yeah.
Made this show called Millennium, and I will make the argument for it's the darkest freaking TV show that you're ever gonna want to watch.
Yeah, like you think it's a police procedural and it's just serial killers, and then it's just creeping evil and mysterious occult organization. It's good. It's really, really good. The third season can just get like thrown out the window. But the first season and the second. Anyway, yes. Great stuff.
Awesome.
Most overrated haunted location.
Honestly, the Stanley Hotel.
Really?
No offense to it's partly because they love to be like Stephen King's inspiration. I've been to the hotel that was a bigger part of the inspiration for that. And it is in upstate. It's in New York. It's
Mount
called
Washington?
Mohonk
Oh,
Mountain
okay.
House.
Okay.
He stays in room 666 on the regular, and if you ever set foot on the property, you will see the lie. Like the other one, definitely like the Kubrick vibe, yes, but for a haunted, creepy old hotel with an actual shrubbery labyrinth, Mohonk Mountain House is the real deal. It's a very hoity-toity place, and they would never ever bank on the haunted part. Like, that's not something they want to talk about. The Stanley is a lovely hotel, and just didn't do it for me.
The most underrated location.
Every haunted library in every small town throughout the Midwest, almost all of them are.
No kidding.
Don't know why,
Library.
but libraries are freaking haunted. It's usually like a cozy kind of haunting. It's not gonna like scare you into running out of the building, but they are haunted. Immersively haunted.
Interesting.
What is your favorite band or musician that reminds you of the paranormal?
Oh, I mean, I've got a list. Gary Newman.
Really?
I love his Exile album. I'm an old school goth, so there's just so many goths. Susie Sue and Sisters of Mercy.
Yep.
Several people who are just overtly occult in their stuff. VNV Nation. A lot of references to magic and reincarnation in their stuff. I've got to give a shout out to Nox Arcana that I work with, because we consciously put a lot of stuff in there.
Typo Negative?
Also very good.
Yeah. Different.
Nine Inch Nails?
More industrial, but yeah.
I like some Nine Inch Nails. I'm in a weird place with that, because our old goth club was the Chamber in Cleveland. The Chamber had been Nine Inch Nails' old practice space, so they would all come through and kind of like lurk on the dance floor and everything. A person previously known as Brian Warner was there. We had a couple of conversations about psychic vampirism. So I've got a different like Ohio local vibe with them,
Right.
where it's not bad, but it's still not the stuff that like speaks to my soul. Lorena McKennett, Quintal. I kind of vibe between like heavy dark goth and goth ethereal. But pretty much if there's music that integrates stories of ghosts, reincarnation, and dreams or anything, like it's probably in my rotation.
Incredible. One last thing here also. Are you careful? And we've brought this up with other investigators, but are you careful about what you eat prior to engaging in the field? Whether psychically, investigatively?
Careful about what I meet, or
What you eat, what you put into your body prior to having to use your body for the energy.
I have to, because I have a lot of food restrictions because of allergies. So I'm particular just for other reasons. I have to be, because if I end up with stuff that doesn't make me feel well, it can be very distracting. Like body feels can be very distracting. So
But
yeah.
not an energy blocker like someone, you eat cheeseburger and fries and it kind of taxes your energy versus something that is fresh. Cucumbers, as an
cheeseburger
example.
fries would tax my energy on a whole lot of levels, including my intestines. Not to put too fine a point on it. I do understand the idea. Like, some people do better if they either eat very light or are like vegetarian or something. Like they're trying to find a way to feed themselves both physically and energetically.
Yeah.
But, you know, left to my own devices, I'm kind of a chaos goblin when it comes to stuff like that. Give me tea and chocolate. That stuff I can do, but
All right. I want to end with this. Do you fear dying?
no, I do fear heroic methods to try to keep me alive, because I've been through that and I don't like it very much. But I've died a couple of times in this life alone, and the dying is not the hard part. It's everything that goes in front of it.
That's a profound statement in many, many levels. And again, it's incredible to have you around. It's incredible to have you in our lives, in our world, and in our minds. And just showing tonight how many people were attending our live show on a Sunday night. It speaks volumes again, Michelle, to how you are respected in this field and how we all love you. And we can't appreciate you any more than we do. And yes, we'll
Always a
give
good
you
conversation.
top billing on the intro.
We
No, it's
will.
always a good conversation. I love the questions you ask. I love the way we dig into it.
No, it's fun. Ken?
Listen, it's always a pleasure. And no kidding, when George says that you were down for tonight, I was like, you know, I look forward to these conversations so much, Michelle. I really do. And I know that a lot of people went along for the ride tonight. And I can't express my appreciation to you enough. And we'll give you a little time. And we promise we will hit you up again down the road, and we'll come in and keep it fresh.
And
Nice
the
seeing all
good
the comments.
and the good part is that we stayed away from the whole Warren Museum thing, which we thought we might go
Yeah.
down that rabbit hole, but it's probably for the best anyway.
Trauma tourism is bad. Don't do it. That's all I got to say on that.
We are on enough of a trauma tour in our
Right?
lives
Like
right
there's
now.
enough terrible stuff. Like go do stuff for fun, for wonder. Feed your soul. Don't go chase things just because they're demonic or scary. Like, don't try to prove to your what are you trying to prove, and who are you trying to prove it to, if that's what you're chasing?
A bit of sage advice from Rochelle and a plethora of thank yous from everybody in the chat. But we're going to go ahead and let you go. Don't hang up just yet, Michelle,
Okay.
but we're going to close out the show for us right now. And I want to thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Patreon Town Hall tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. Lots to talk about, guys. Until then, my name is George Lopez, along with Mr. Ken DeCosta. Wishing you all a good week, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh baby's hella bad. After her there ain't no coming back. Wanna take a run at that. I think she's feeling me, turn it up a few degrees. My imagination of her body gets the best of me. Oh gosh, she's such a tease, bitten lips,